Let's go ahead and get started, and folks can join us. Keep an eye on the chat. Again, I'm Danny Rubin, the founder of our company. We're called Rubin, R-U-B-I-N. And my colleague here is Mac Dowd on the Rubin team. And Mac will click off her camera and she'll hang out in the chat, answer any questions. But I wanted her to be here for our little hangout session, our pre-party, as they call it in webinar land. So thank you all for coming. Again, another great crowd in the middle of summer. I know we have some folks here teaching summer school and some students here too. So let's say a special hello to the students and also all of you who are here to learn some new skills and to gain some professional development time. We appreciate you being here for now our third installment of our summer learning series. Raise your hand if you've been to one of our webinars before, in the school year or over the summer. And we have a lot of folks who have been here before. And raise your hand if you're brand new. This is your first one. Show of hands if you're new here. Okay, great. Always have some new people. So those of you who have been here before, you know what we always like to do and start with are some free resources, right? Because that's what it's all about, giving more resources out there that you can work towards. For a bit of information for those who are new, our company is Rubin, and we provide online learning resources for student communication skills. For those of you who are new, I'll make it real clear. Raise your hand if your students send you emails that look like text messages. Show of hands if you receive emails that look like text. And for the students here, just sort of letting you know what it looks like on your teacher's end if they haven't already told you. So what we do as one skill is we teach professional email writing, and we're doing a session on that in our next session, which I'll talk about in a minute. But today we're talking about out of the box, innovative ways to be an exceptional applicant in a job interview, whether it's virtual or in person. That's what we're doing today. So what I'd like to do first is share some resources that we are going to be going through together. Everything we're going to cover today, we're going to make available in a Google folder. Okay, so we're going to go through everything I'm showing you here, but I want to offer it now on my slide here. So we put together a Google folder of the skills we will address in the next several minutes. We're going to learn how to research a company you like in a unique way, how to send an email to request an interview if they don't even know you yet, learning how to ask smart questions during the interview, how to answer any of their questions with a story. And many of you who have been here before, you know we're big on storytelling in here, right? And some of you have already said you have your students telling stories. So that's what we're going to get into for interviews. And then we're going to talk about a stellar thank you note after the interview. So really taking it all the way through from just checking out a company to requesting the interview, doing the interview, and saying thank you, and how to be an exceptional communicator the entire time. So we've put together a Google folder of these resources that we'd love to pass out to everybody here. If you'd like it, I'll explain how to get that in just a second. We also always like to offer a checklist for giving exceptional online presentations. How do you present? How do you stand? How do you speak? A one-page checklist that's great to give out to students or put on the wall or put next to a computer or put on a desk. So all of this is come together in a Google folder. Some of you have received our previous webinar Google folders. This one's all new material. So whether you've been here before or you're brand new, the simplest way, the easiest way to request it in this setting is to please go to the chat right now, type the word interested and your email address. Interested and your email address. Do it all panelists and attendees. All panelists and attendees. Okay, for those who are new, we always like to have a brief phone call so that we can meet you, understand what you're teaching, help you make sense of this content in your class, in your school. So those of you who are new, we'd love to fit that in before the holiday, just a few minutes on Thursday or Friday of this week to say hello, pass it along, because it really helps to make sure you have it, you know what to do with it. And we love to just actually have a real human conversation. These webinars keep us kind of separated a little bit. So thanks to those who are putting their information. We will, for the new folks, we will reach out with a Google invite for a quick call in the next couple of days so that we can pass it along quickly. So while you do that, I want to make a few other mentions, some housekeeping here. Those of you who will watch this on a recording, Please know that you can also request these resources by emailing us at support@rubineducation.com with the subject line of Rubin Worksheets. And then we'll pass it along that way if you're watching this not live. Plenty of you do that. Two more things to note. Put it on your calendar right now. We will be doing our 4th installment of our summer learning series on July 14th. We're talking about how to send emails like a pro. A deep dive on how to write a professional email, which is a great foundational skill to teach over the summer or right when school starts. Help students learn how to communicate as soon as possible. They can open doors for themselves in all directions. So it'll be at 11:30 in the morning in 2 weeks. We'll skip over the holiday and we'll meet in the middle of July. And finally, everybody here today, tomorrow morning, on Thursday morning, we will send you a certificate for being here live for your professional development time. The students can have it too. And you can put your name on it as well. So look out for that in your email tomorrow. And we will make sure you have this certificate, proof that you were here. Okay, so we will run through all this one more time at the very end, but I wanted to make sure I mention all of this information now so you know right up front. We love to give out resources because it should be more than just listening and learning today and then it's gone. We want you to take this material and actually use it. Bring it into the classroom. Show of hands, how many of you have taken our previous webinar resources and used them in instructional time? Taken them with you and just implemented in the class. That's what it's about. We don't want it to end here. We want it to start here. And then you go do what you do with hopefully some fresh ideas and some new approaches, because how many of you have been teaching job interviews for a long time? A long time could be a couple years, many years, right? It's just a part of career development. And I want to give you today some ways to think about interviews that are uncommon, but have a powerful impact on that employer or the person the student is speaking to. So let's dive into our material today. And if you have questions along the way, you can put them in the chat, okay? And I'll keep asking you questions too. We really want this to be participatory. And for the teachers who are with your students, the questions that I ask them to your students and put their answer in the chat, okay? We want really a lot of call and response and a lot of answers today. It's the end of June, it's the summer, and let's get as much out of this session as we can. So I'm going to share my screen one more time here and flip over to a different set of tabs. Okay. And all right, we can see my screen okay. It says Rubin up here. It says emerge right here. Can somebody confirm that for me? So okay. Thank you. I see some hands going up there. Thank you. So for those who are new, I always want to explain as a company who we are, what we do, because we're going to be learning out of our online platform today for our job interview skills. So our company is called Rubin. We provide a curriculum called Emerge to high schools and colleges and universities, and also middle schools around the country. Some of you sitting here today use this material or you have in previous semesters. So it's called Emerge. And just to get down to what matters most, so these are the topics that we cover in a library of online exercises: how to write effective emails, life skills, which also includes lessons for inclusion, access, equity, and diversity. Show of hands if your school system or university is making a push for more equity and diversity instruction. So we do that too in the context of how to communicate. Phone and video etiquette skills, networking emails, resumes, telling stories in cover letters and interviews, which we'll get to. Internship and job outreach emails, LinkedIn profile creation. We're going to be doing a deep dive in this box in just a few minutes, for just a minute. Finding your big idea for business development. How many folks here teach business, marketing, or entrepreneurship? Show of hands there. Who does that? Or who's an advisor to a student organization, like a CTSO? So we teach communication for idea development, sales, website writing, PR skills, fundraising communication. And we cover a lot of leadership communication, writing for managers, writing to your clients, project management communication, public speaking lessons, writing reports and summaries and status updates and memos, and activities for students in leadership roles, learning how to be an effective communicator. So we're a big, wide library that integrates to a school's learning management system. What does everybody use out there? Canvas, Schoology, Google Classroom, Moodle. Put in the chat your learning management system. We have Canvas, 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 Schoology, Canvas, 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 Google Classroom. Every time I say Google Classroom, my phone lights up because I keep saying Google. I think they're listening to me. Thank you for sharing that. So this material is a big library and it integrates to whatever platform a school is on. So that is who we are. And this is the framework from which our information will come today. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to learn how to research a company we're interested in. They don't even know us yet, but we're learning who they are and we'd love to interview there one day. Let's just start at the beginning of the process. We have no door in yet. We're just curious. Okay, I'm going to take you to a website for a company in our community. Those of you in Virginia know this company. It's called Centera, and they are a hospital system. How many of your students, I know we have some health science here, right? We have students maybe one day want to be nurses, doctors, medical assistants, just there's lots, obviously you have students going in a million directions. And this strategy works for any career path, but to choose one, we're going to do a health science example just for the purpose of the demonstration, okay? So what we want students to do when they are approaching a company is we want the students to learn about the company. But let me ask the group a question. I want you to put it in the chat, okay? If you wanted to learn about something the company has done recently that they're proud of, an achievement, what page or pages on their website might you look for? Can you put in the chat? Where would they look or where would you look? Carrie Ann says the home screen. Ashley says social media links. Jacqueline says about or news. So I'm seeing some really good answers here. Now the About Us page, keep this in mind. A company might create an About Us page in 1997 and not update it ever again. So where are we going to find the newest stuff, the latest stuff? I saw a few people put it in here. Let me scroll back up. We had Carly says a press release. Ooh, now you're getting down into it, aren't we? News, recent news. There's a B word. What's a B word on a company's website that has updated information? A B what? What's that other word? 4 letters, blog. We want to take students right there to the newest, latest stuff. Now let's look at Centera. I don't see it up here. Where else might we find some quick links for a website? Maybe the bottom? What about at the bottom? Maybe it's down there. Let's go down there. Oh, what do we find? What's over here? If I wanted to learn the latest and greatest with this hospital system, what link would I click right in here? Someone tell me what link? There it is, newsroom. Let's go in there. Oh, and look what we have. All kinds of information. Recent $40 million community investment. This person just won a Darden Award. Centera Healthcare, one of the top 5 large US health systems. Here's what I'm getting at. I want your students to visit the website of a company that they're interested in, visit a page with their newest information like newsroom or blog, and read one article all the way through. Read the entire thing, okay? And then and we'll get to this in a few moments, they're gonna then learn to generate a question about the article they read. And they're gonna have that question ready for the interview. And you're gonna see this grand scheme in a few minutes. But the first step is to have them learn how to honestly and genuinely research a company. How many of you think you could have your students do this? How many of your students in summer school could do this as soon as we're done? To not just go to the About Us page or to forget to visit the company at all. I'm going to tell you right now, the biggest gotcha question in an interview is, and students listen, the employer says, have you had a chance to visit our website yet? And what do you say if you haven't? You say, oh yeah, I looked at it a little bit when I was coming in this morning, or just I looked at it, I glanced at it. Wouldn't it be better if you could jump on that question and say, yes, and I was on your blog and I read an article about how you're one of the top 5 systems in the country, and I have a question about that. Now think about the difference in your answer there. So this is kind of a setting us up for what we're going to learn today. It all starts with doing our research. And let me, while we're on this topic, let me ask you, how many of you help prepare students for career fairs? Show of hands that you prepare them for career fairs. Okay, write this little tip down. How many times with a career fair do you know which employers will be there ahead of time? How many times do you know who's going to be there at those booths? Okay, so here's the exercise. You're going to let the students pick one or two companies off that list, visit their website before the career fair, read a news article about them that they wrote themselves, and then they're going to have a question ready. So when they walk up to that booth, they say, I already know what you do. I visited your blog, I read an article, and I have a question about it. Now, how impressive do you think that would look? Do you think, tell me in the chat, would that look impressive to you? If a student walked up already having done their homework before they even started talking to the employer? Daryl says, very. Carrie Ann, yes. Latrice, absolutely. Now, how much time would it take a student to do this, to do that homework? How much time? What do you think? 10 minutes? 15 minutes? Not much more than that, right? So it's not about doing more work, and it's not about complicating the process. What are we really doing here? This is a skill we learned when we were in kindergarten. We are treating people the way that we want to be. What's that last word? Treat people the way you want to be. What's that last word? What did we learn oh so long ago? We are showing interest in other people because we want them to show interest in us, right? So it's not complicated. Doesn't require advanced degrees. Students can do this at any age, even middle school. Okay, so it all starts with research, and we're going to provide a slide deck for you that walks you exactly through this exact website and how we did this. Okay, so you can show this to students later. Carrie Ann says it's the golden rule. We're teaching the golden rule today, over and over again, just in the context of job interviews. Please make sure you're using all panelists and attendees as your setting, okay? All right, let's move on. Now, let's say we really love to work for a company or intern there, but they don't know us yet. How do we ask for an informational interview? They haven't even asked us to come in. We're just coming from the outside, taking a shot, right? And what did Michael Jordan say? You miss all the shots you don't take, right? You got to take your shot, but you got to do it with a strategy. And that strategy, again, is the golden rule, okay? So let's talk about that. Let's talk about that email. Let's say it's a recent grad. There's lots of scenarios here for informational interviews. Let's say the student's a recent grad with no connection at the company. The subject line will say recent grad from the name of the school, and then requesting the informational interview, stating the purpose in the subject line. How many of your students have a lot of confusion over subject lines? They leave it blank. They put the whole message, not quite sure what to do. This is an example of an effective subject line with the name of the school, the proper noun sticks out, and the request clearly stating their intention. Then my name is first and last. They explain who they are. This is in the case of a college student, but it could be any student. And then explaining early on in the message what they are writing about. I'm hoping for a quick informational interview so I can learn more about the name of the company. Stating it high up in the message, not putting their ask or their request at the end, putting it at the beginning. Then one quick section on some of the skills the student has. Now, we talked about this a lot in our resume section in our last webinar. We talk about I'm majored in or I'm interested in the field that, in question. And then we're going to add 2 hard skills. Now, an example of a hard skill. Let me ask, is a hard skill a word like passionate or determined or responsible? Are those hard skills? Or are hard skills words like CPR certified, bilingual, Adobe Photoshop, AutoCAD, right? So we want students to put a couple of their hard skills right in that message, not adjectives, but hard skills. We talked a lot about that in our last session. It's on YouTube, so we won't get into all that today, okay? If they have a link to a portfolio, how many of your students are making portfolios right now, digital portfolios? If they have one, link to it right there. Got to be in the email. Show me your stuff, right? And then this is the kicker. We're going to show the person, oh, look what we're doing again. We're doing our homework, right? Our research. I read your background and see you began as an intern at big corporation and rose to become senior vice president. It's inspiring for someone like me who just started out in the field or just graduated or is still in school. What do we do again? Is it the exact same strategy we just used to research a company before we even know about them? Are we doing it again? Are we showing we have a giver's mentality? That we have a curiosity, a selflessness once again? Yes. So we're teaching students again that if you want people to take an interest in you, you need to first show you're interested in who they are. Not a generic cookie cutter email that you send to 50 employers. It's got to be special to that person. And again, how long would it take to go on a website bio or LinkedIn page and see that the person was an intern once and now is in senior vice president? How long would this take to do? How many minutes do you think? Tell me in the chat. How many minutes would this take to find out these basic facts on somebody? Carrie Ann says 10 minutes. 10 minutes tops. Jasmine says 5. This is not tricky. There is no trick question. This is just, again, how we treat each other, how people want to be treated. Okay. So again, that's the structure of the message. Let me know if we have a few minutes to meet. I would appreciate the chance to ask questions. You're not asking for a job. You're looking to learn, to understand the industry, understand the job. You're not asking to be hired. You're asking to learn. That's what this email is all about. And we will provide this email to the group as well in that Google folder, this exact message that you can show students so they can see the structure of a message, even so far as to not make everything one big paragraph. How many of your students write in one big paragraph with lowercase letters? Lowercase I, the letter U. So we need to see what an email should be just structurally, but we also need to understand how to use our words to make somebody want to write us back, especially in the case where they don't even know us yet. How do you make a busy person stop in their day and respond to a total stranger, a young person? It's by showing the skills you have and showing you already care about them. That's the secret sauce. Okay. So this is the message that I'd love for you to show them. You can adapt it to any interview pitch situation, but it's designed for to get that informational foot in the door, right? Because once you have that first conversation, which we're going to talk about now, anything is possible, but you can't do it till you get there. Okay. And you can get to that interview a lot of ways, applying for a job or just cold calling or cold emailing like this. Okay. So we have successfully learned about them and sort of made our move towards that company. Let's say glory day, they have offered a chance for an interview. The big moment is here. The big day is here. The night before, how do we prepare? We prepare in 2 ways. We prepare our own questions and we prepare with how to respond to their questions. And how many of you believe that preparation is the key to success? You need a plan before you step in that room. And frankly, the success it's more important how you prepare, frankly, than maybe even the moment itself. Maybe it's 50-50 or 60-40, right? But it's all about how you prepare for that moment. Let's talk about how to prepare. And by the way, those teachers who have students with you, are the students staying with me? Are they grasping these concepts? Somebody confirm or reaffirm for me that these lessons are not lost on the students who are watching today. I know we have mostly educators, but for those who have students with you, let us know that these ideas are connecting. Okay, Karen says they're doing good. All right, let's keep it moving. Let me get my Zoom thing out of the way. All right, let's talk about preparing questions. And let me ask you, what do you think are some common interview, when the employer says, do you have any questions for me? Do you have any questions for me? What do you think are the questions that a person at any age might ask when they're looking at a job? What kind of questions do people typically ask when the employer says, what questions do you have for me? Take a stab at that in the chat. What questions do people typically ask? I know my answer. Students want to know about the pay. Michelle says, what's the pay? Karen says salary and vacation. What day we get paid on? Oh, you're just making my point, and I appreciate that. How much does it pay? When do I start? What is the work environment? What about holidays? Okay, I think you've done what I wanted you to do. Now, what do all of those questions focus on? What do they focus on? Me, 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 don't they? Especially in that first interview. They're all about me. What are you going to do for me? You want to hire me? What is it? What am I going to get? How much are you going to pay me? When is my vacation? What are my benefits? Where am I going to sit? What's the company culture? Me, 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 me. I need to know all about me right now. And what I want your students to understand is in that moment, that especially that first interview, we need to flip it 180 degrees. And who do you think we should focus on? I've already done it twice. Who should we focus on in that moment? Not on us. That's right, on the company. Now, how do we do that? Let's talk about it. We will provide a document with 4 questions that every applicant should prepare. Now, they may not have the chance to ask all 4, but they'll be ready with 4, and being ready is more important. But they'll generally have time for the first 2. Let's talk about all 4. And again, we will provide this information to you. You don't need to take screenshots. We'll give it to you. But let's talk about it together, okay? The first one's called the background check, and we just touched on this a little bit in that email we worked through. We are going to generate a question about the person we are talking to. Not even about the company yet. The person sitting across from us in Zoom or Google Meet or in a physical space, fingers crossed once again, we are going to have a question about them. For instance, I noticed you started your career in marketing for Ringling Brothers Circus. What was that experience like? Let me ask you, put yourself in the position of an employer, and maybe some of you have done hiring in the past, and a young person walks in, high school, college age, early 20s, and the first thing they want to do is ask a question about your own background because they did some research the night before. What would that say to you? How would you view that young person if they came in with a question about you from information that you freely put out there on the internet? It's not like they snooped around and found something secretive. We have Elizabeth says, very impressive. Carrie Ann says, love it. Darlene says, they care. Please make sure you're doing all panelists and attendees, everybody, so we can all see these comments. Immediately, before you even talk about the job, how many of you think that the employers already mentally put that young person in the maybe to yes pile for this potential opportunity? Just on that question alone. We haven't even talked about the job, because how many jobs you will learn on the job what you do. But we know that what do employers look for the most? What are they always asking for in every survey of industry, every community survey? What is the number one thing they want to see more of out of young people? What is the number one thing? Michelle said it right away. Anywhere in America, probably in other countries and those who are visiting from around the world right now, everyone wants more soft skills. So we are helping our students demonstrate soft skills immediately by asking a question about the employer's background. We are checking that box in the first 30 seconds. So that's what we're after here. We are addressing their concern in a way they didn't see coming. And that's what this lesson is about. Now, question 2, the office insight. This goes back to our initial research. We're going to visit their website, the blog, the press releases, the newsroom. We're going to generate a question about their work. Push our students to think critically about why it is you want to work somewhere and what makes you curious about their work. It's hard. It's not a common skill. We don't think about it a lot, but this is going to make the difference in a competitive hiring round. A sample question. I read several of your press releases and I saw you're making a push to carry more gluten-free products. How big is the demand right now for gluten-free foods? How many, for the students, say it to your teacher, or the teachers tell me yourself, how many think your students are capable of reading a press release or a blog post and coming up with a question about something they want to know more about? How many of you think your students can do that? Okay, because this is a critical skill in life, not just interviews. To think a little bit, to look around that corner, flip over that rock, want to know more, to be a little hungry for information, to be like, what's that? What if I ask that? If this, then that. So again, they are going to prepare a question about the employer and a question about the company. And is this a question about salary, holidays, benefits, vacation, and where they're going to sit? Is that what this question's about? Is there anything in this question about my perks and benefits? But will every other applicant that day ask about salary and benefits and holiday time? But your student is going to ask about their press release. Think about the difference in when the employer sits back at the end of the day and goes back through who they talked to. There's only one real candidate at that point. Only one. That's it. Unless you have multiple students from the same class going after the same job, then it gets interesting because they'll have the same strategy. But generally speaking, they're going to stand on their own. Now, two more questions to consider, and they may or may not have time to get into it, but they should have it ready. One is called the wow factor. Okay, so we want students to also learn about the industry at large, the healthcare industry, the video game industry, something going on in the space, something that might be weighing on that company, right? So example, I see Acme Corporation recently bought Little Corporation. Like I see in the grocery industry that this big company just bought this little company. What does that acquisition say to you? What does it mean for your team? This is really a next level question, but students are capable. You know what, if you push them a little bit, they can do this. Have them visit a website to learn about the industry. There's always a publication or a website for each niche career space. Have them look around, understand what's going on out there in the world. And then if you bring that type of question to the employer, it shows you're thinking not just about the company, but how the company fits into the bigger picture. That's called the wow factor, because that's the type of question that almost no one would ever think to do. And I should mention at this point, for those of you who don't know me, I was a TV reporter before I entered this space helping students. So doesn't this feel like if you're watching like 60 Minutes or Dateline, these are the kind of questions they ask, right? These really deep questions. And then you sit there and you're like, oh, that's a good question. That's where this is coming from. Now, the last one is called the inception. And this is where the student already has thought about a way to add value or contribute to the team even before he or she is hired. Okay, so I like the way your store offers online deals based on my previous purchases. For me, a 20-something or a teen, it's a smart strategy. Wouldn't it be cool to do a targeted campaign to reach people where they spend time online? So they're already thinking about, hey, I see you're doing this, or I'm really good at this, and I could help your team with graphic design or with app development or with whatever the student's good at. Already showing that they are ready to bring their skills that they already possess to the team day one. And they're willing to learn lots of other stuff, but they already know how to do Adobe, or they know how to speak Spanish, or whatever it is. So these are the 4 questions. Time permitting, they can work on all 4. If you're crunched for time, just do the first 2, because these are the questions that will separate. And whether or not the employer asks if the student has questions, the student should still ask their questions. Say, I brought some questions for you. Do you mind if I ask them? Absolutely ask them, especially questions this good. Please. What a breath of fresh air to not have to answer, when do I get paid? And instead, what does this become? Instead of an interview, when you start talking about their business, it goes from an interview to a conversation. Wouldn't it be better to go to a conversation than a job interview? Doesn't that sound nicer to you, to go to a conversation? And it also makes the young person look older, more experienced, when they're just talking to an older employer in a very casual, respectful way about the business. instead of like just sitting there waiting to be asked, where do you go to school? What do you like to do? And it breaks the ice. How many of you think that you could take your students through these 4 questions and help them prepare questions for a mock interview or a real interview? How many think they could do that? Great. Great. Now, obviously, most of the time in the interview, you're answering their questions, right? But once again, we are not going to do it the way it's always been done. Okay. A typical answer, what's a typical job interview question? What is like the most common or a few of the most common questions employers ask applicants at the start of an interview? What would be one of those questions? Tell me about yourself. Yep. There's another one that's pretty common. Why are you interested in this position? Right? Tell me about yourself. Exactly. Let's start right there. Why do you want to work here? Right? These are the questions we're always asked. And most of the time, we answer with adjectives. Those of you who have been here before, you know I do not like adjectives. You say you're passionate, you're dedicated, you're really interested in this field, you think the company's amazing, you're really motivated. All these words, you know what those words amount to? You know what they're worth? A big fat nothing. Because everyone uses those words. And how do we really know that you're passionate and you're dedicated and you're a leader? How do we know? Have you given us an example, or did you just say you are those things? You say the company's amazing, but can you back it up with any facts? Right? If someone pressed you on it, why are we amazing? I'm not sure, but you just are. You just are. You're such a cool company, right? We want students to live in details. And another way to do that is to have stories ready of times in their recent past where they have solved challenges. How many of you have used this strategy with your students in interviews or cover letters so far? Those of you who have been with us for several months, I know we always talk about storytelling, and we find ways to use it in all aspects of career development. Again, this is coming out of time working in journalism. Tell good stories, you hold the audience's attention, and you prove your point. So here's what I want all of your students to do for every future interview. They need to prepare what we call my 3 stories. And they're going to bring in a notepad with their questions prepared for the employer and these 3 of their own stories, like the title of the stories, to jog their memory. So in the moment, they don't forget what they wanted to share. Okay, we have 3 examples here. The first 2 should be examples of their hard work, their dedication, their determination, all those adjectives. And the third story can or should be something interesting in their personal life, some funny story, something about their hobby. So they show that they're a hard worker and they also have a fun side. They do things outside of school or a job. Okay, but what I want us to do is look through one of these stories together so you understand what I'm talking about. And again, we will provide this page to everybody in that Google folder, and I'll mention it again at the end. Okay, so let's talk about the fire alarm as one story example. Okay, so the employer says, why are you interested in the project manager position? Pretty standard question. You applied for this job. Why do you want this job? Well, let's look at the answer. I spent the past 3 years, and this is someone who has had a little bit of work experience, but the student could put this in their own context. I spent the past 3 years at a nonprofit. I gained a lot of great skills running different programs and events. I'm ready for a new challenge, and I prefer fast-paced environments like your company, where I would think quickly. In fact, let me tell you a good story. And right then and there, the employer leans in. They're listening, they're locked in. There's a story coming. We all love stories. About 6 months ago, our nonprofit hosted its annual fundraising gala. 500 people, black tie affair, the whole 9 yards. Right as we're about to announce our record-breaking donation total, the fire alarm goes off and won't stop blaring. Everyone's looking around for what to do. So I jump on the microphone and calmly ask 500 people to exit the banquet hall and go outside. The fire department came, searched the place, and didn't find anything. Then I herded all 500 people back into the room and kept the night on track. So I have definitely handled stressful situations and stayed calm when everything broke down. And I'll be poised again when a client has a critical challenge. And the boss says, okay, this person clearly can handle whatever happens. But what are some of the words, some of those adjectives you would use to describe this person? What are some of the qualities they show by telling a story? Tell me in the chat, what are some words? Liz says grace under pressure. That's a good one. What else? How do they calm, independent, active thinker, ready to act, unflappable, good word, problem solver. So all the skills we want, all the soft skills we want in a new hire, the person just proved it. But did we use any of those words? Any of these words you're telling me? Was there a sentence full of them? Were we just like spitting them out like a thesaurus? Nope. Liz says nope. We let the story do all the selling for us. But how did we know to tell this story? In the moment, we're nervous, we're clammy. They ask us why we're here, because what did we do? What did we do the night before? What did we do the night before? Or that day before? We prepared. We identified our stories. We made notes about the ones we want to tell. And I don't care what they ask you. You can answer with a story. Why are you here? Why are you interested? Tell me about yourself. Could we answer any of those questions with this story? Any of those questions, we like, you know what? Can I just tell you kind of a quick story about who I am? You have their attention and you've already made your point. So let's step back for a second. First, we blow their minds by asking a question about their own career, right? And they're like, wow. Then we answer their standard question with a dynamic story. I mean, if they're not hiring you right on the spot, then hopefully it's coming soon after, because nobody wants to lose a young person who is this on their game, because this kind of person doesn't walk in the door every day, right? And what I cannot stress enough is that every student is capable of what we're talking about. This is not just for the student leaders or the students in drama who are good at, telling stories, emoting. This is for everyone. Everyone is capable because everyone can do research and everyone has experiences. This is not limited to a certain section of the school or certain careers or gifted and talented. This is everybody. And I cannot stress that enough. These are skills everyone deserves, techniques everyone should understand. And they can do it if they're given the guidance and they're given the examples. That's why I want you to use these examples that we'll pass along. So show of hands, am I making some sense here so far? Doing our research, telling our stories. I don't know if you've ever seen job interview webinars this way, but I hope that you are feeling that this is time well spent and it's giving you some momentum heading into next year to show students how to be at their absolute best. Now, the last thing I want to touch upon, and then we'll do some wrap up. Oh yeah, I want to mention what Liz said. Those without paid work experience, talk about absolutely unpaid and volunteer. 100%. It doesn't matter where this experience comes from. It could be helping your family at home. It could be doing house projects. It could be anything. You have to just identify a moment in your life where something got hard and you could have quit, but you stuck with it and you got to the other side. That's what the employer needs to know. It doesn't matter how official that experience was. Okay, now let's talk about that thank you message. Okay, we've done beautifully. We researched them. We brought our questions. We told our stories. Interview ends. They say, thanks so much for coming in. We'll be in touch with you. What do you do next? You got to send that thank you note, right? How many of you teach students to send thank you notes after interviews? Show of hands. I'm sure that's a very standard part of the instruction, of course. But let's take that thank you note to another level. Let's make it, if everyone sends thank you notes, let's make sure your students have the best thank you notes, the ones the employer uses as a gold standard every day after that. Let's look at an example that we will pass along afterwards. Thanks again for your time in the subject line. Clear, concise. Thanks again for meeting with me this morning or this afternoon. I appreciate your time and enjoyed learning more about the company. Then here's the kicker. Here's what separates. The student is going to repeat advice that the employer gave them. Thank you for the advice to continue learning 3D printing. I will keep at it. Or a way they think they can contribute if it led to more of a real job opportunity. I'm interested in the position. I feel my design skills would be a nice compliment to your graphics department. But when in doubt, share advice. Share that you listened, you heard them, and you remembered it so well that you give it back to them. Because how many of you think that when a young person goes for an interview, it's one part interview and one part sort of a bit of a mentorship session, kind of sharing some knowledge, sharing some wisdom back with that young person, right? The employer might try to offer some nuggets of wisdom. So for the student to say, I remember you told me X and it meant a lot, thank you. But being specific, right? Did we just leave it as, thanks for the great advice? How do we make it specific? How did we get down into the details? What words did I use in this sentence that prove I listened to this person's exact advice? I'm not sending the same sentence to 50 people or 10 people. What words are in this sentence right here? That's right. Liz says 3D printing. Name that skill. Name the thing that you talked about. Get specific. Everything I'm trying to impart today, I want you to understand that it's easy to do the generic. It's easy to do a copy paste. It takes a little more time, not much, but a little more time and more thinking to make sure we're always communicating in a way that is unique and authentic to the recipient. So instead of saying thank you for the advice, period, we're adding 3D printing because that means more. And you know, if you got that message, it would mean more to you, right? So there we go again with that golden rule. So this is his golden rule all the way through. Then, we wrap it up. Do you have any further questions? Please feel free to ask. And I would say this. I recommend the students send a thank you note over email that same day because it's right then. And then there is nothing wrong and it's encouraged to send a handwritten note after the fact. Send that thank you email right away so that they hear from you. And then you can send a separate thank you with a handwritten note after the fact. I have it right here. I helped with some mock interviews for Loudoun County schools in Northern Virginia a few weeks ago. Talked with 5 exceptional students in their health science academy, and they each sent me a thank you note. And they did a decent job making it feel like it was written just to me. So even though they said thank you in the moment, I got a thank you from the instructor who was overseeing it. They sent their own notes to me. And that says a lot about the program and about these young people. So you cannot go wrong with an email and a thank you note as well. So it doesn't have to be an either or. I think it can be a both, a yes and, because of every possible opportunity to stand out. So what I'd like to do is recap what I said at the beginning. If folks have questions, ask them now as we go through, and I'll pick out the questions. I know I covered a lot of territory, and I may have missed a couple of questions in the chat. So throw it back out there if you have it. While you do that, for the folks who came in a few minutes after we started, I want to reiterate this offer of these resources that we just went through. So now you know what I mean by all of these bullets, right? Now they all make sense. We just went through them. And so for those of you who would like these resources that I just went through, exactly what I showed you in a Google folder, along with an online presentation checklist, because we just always talk about how to give virtual presentations, how to be engaging, and how to use good lighting and good posture and energy. So for all of those resources, those of you who missed it, please go to the chat, type the word interested, and your email address. Interested and your email address. And for those of you who are new to our community, we will send you a Google invite, a member of our team, for just a few minutes, hopefully tomorrow or Friday. We can get this in before the holiday, okay? to pass it along, learn about your program, understand what it is you're working on for the summer or the fall. And if the time does not work, just suggest another, okay? But that's what we'd love to do, is to talk to the new folks, make you part of our community, and give you the resources. Lastly, if you're watching on a recording, please, you can also have these resources by sending a message to this email address with the subject line, Rubin Worksheets, and we'll pass it along that way. Again, our next session is on how to send emails like a pro. That's on Wednesday, July 14th, 11:30 in the morning. So love to have you back, and tell other colleagues to join us then. We're going to do a deep dive on how to write effective emails. And then lastly, everyone here today, and the students too, will receive a certificate tomorrow morning to your email. And the teachers, please pass it along to them if they're just watching through your screen, as proof that you were here. Use it for professional development time, whatever you need it for your portfolio. We'll make sure that you have that. So let me come back to the chat. I saw a couple of questions, and let me scroll back up and catch them. Hold on. Carrie Ann says, what's the best way to advise students on how to seek out and find the right person within a company to send that email request for informational interview? That's a good question. Sometimes there's large companies and it's hard to know who to start with. I would start with somebody in human resources, start there, or, and this is another skill set that we didn't talk about today, but we do get into in our curriculum, is call up the company, call the main line, ask your intentions. I'm trying to find the right person to email to request an informational interview, and perhaps the receptionist or an administrative person can tell the student who to send that email to. There's no need to take a wild guess at it. Learn to have a live phone conversation, and that person may provide the ideal contact. So I would start with a phone call before you start emailing willy-nilly at whoever you think might be best. Candace says, what hard skills should students pursue? Google certifications, CRM, a Salesforce. Listen, the best skills to pursue are the skills that your industry needs you to have. I'm sure you all are in different pathways. So either you know today the skills employees value, or you have to ask those questions of your employer partners. What skills do you want our students to show to you? Every industry is different. A tool like Salesforce is a customer database software. So if you want to work in some industrial job or something that is not going to be sales related, you may not need Salesforce. But if you're going to work in engineering or graphic design, you might need other skills that someone with Salesforce doesn't need. So you really need to know the job or the pathway, and then identify those skills. And I know that school systems do a good job of bringing you the chance at certifications for lots of different products, because they know that's what the industry is asking for. Let's see, hold on, let me get to the bottom here. A few more questions, excuse me. Let's see, oh no, just some thank yous. Well, you're very welcome for being here today. And we enjoy this. Right now it's been so long since we've been at a exhibit hall, a conference where we could just talk about these things at our booth, and so to have this chance every couple of weeks is really our lifeline with each other right now. How can we keep learning and sharing information if not for Zoom and these virtual tools? So thank you everybody for all the comments. Thanks. I see Gabe and Terry from Las Vegas. I'm just scrolling through some names. Great to have all of you here. If there are no final questions, then we will end a few minutes early, give you those 5 minutes back. I hope you'll join us in 2 weeks for our email etiquette webinar. And until then, you can reach out with questions, and we will also provide the recording on Thursday, and it'll be on our YouTube channel. We'll email everything you need tomorrow. So just keep an eye on your email. And again, thank you for your time and attention. And we look forward to talking at future events. So have a great rest of the day, everybody, and have a great holiday weekend, which is oh so close. So thanks again.